Hey everybody, welcome to week 7 of Twitch and Box Sports Talk. This is LSV for life. I'm down here with Twitch and the Box themselves here at the Backstage Pass. Got some interesting games going on. Got a few highlights from last week we want to cover. We're hitting that middle of the stretch of the year and some pivotal moments for a bunch of teams at this point. So, Box, let's get it started.
I'm going to roll into my personal favorite segment we run here is what made us twitch from this week. And I'm going to let the Twitch himself start us off here. Twitch, what made you twitch this week watching NFL games?
Well, for me, being a Steelers fan, I'd have to say, Cleveland kind of hung around a lot longer than what they should have, and that was in large part due to, yes, Pittsburgh had 6 sacks on the day on the rookie quarterback at Cleveland, but it dropped about 5 interceptions. One where, I'll get to him in a second, but where the linebacker literally had a screen pass that probably would have been a pick 6, and then another one that hit Deshaun Elliott right in the chest. And so with that, that was the things that made me twitch, just because Pittsburgh, for the most part, was in control, but a couple times they really could have put the game out of reach earlier had they caught a couple of the balls.
A couple of the picks.
Yeah.
What made me twitch this week, other than some Broncos play calling that I'll break down in our state of the teams, is the Falcons made me twitch this week just in general. We go out, we get 30-0'd by the Carolina Panthers, and then we roll in and we beat the Bills at home 24-14. And, I mean, it's a good win for them, but it also makes me twitch because what are we doing? Like, we can't it's hard to be hot and cold. I mean, they're in a division with Baker Mayfield. You're in a stacked NFC in general, having a 3-2 record that I know that Michael Penix may not be the quarterback of the future there. Who knows who the quarterback of the future is for Atlanta right now. But the Falcons made me twitch just in general. Like, you think they're a crap team, and then they come out and play really good, which is part of the parity in the NFL. But also, like, I was high on them in the preseason saying, hey, this team's loaded. They have studs everywhere on offense. They should be good. But I don't know if it's play calling. I haven't really analyzed it too much. But the Falcons made me twitch because just across the board, I may have lost quite a bit of money on the Falcons beating the Bills last night. But it's definitely what made me twitch this last weekend, other than the Broncos play calling.
Yeah, how do you lose to Carolina 30-0, and then you dominate the Commanders and in charge for most of the Bills game?
Yeah, what are we doing? But that takes us in to our best performers of this last week. We're going to do an offensive and defensive player here together. My offensive player of the week is Arizona State product Cam Scabadoo. 19 carries for 98 yards, 3 rushing touchdowns, and another 2 for 12 through the air. But every single of those 19 rushes were, I don't even know how to describe it, pissed off rushes. I mean, you watch him play, you feel it just runs through people. He just doesn't care. Doesn't seem like he cares about his body at all. He just throws his body around, and just the energy that the Giants have right now is dangerous. And if I was in the NFC, I'd be very worried. And I'm very worried this week because the Giants play my Broncos.
Yeah, that's a good take. For me, my offensive player of the week for the second straight week, Rico Dowdle for the Panthers. This week ended up with 239 all-purpose yards and a touchdown to go with 183 yards last week. So honorable mention last week, gets over the hump this week. He was my performer. And a big reason for the Panthers, if you want to call it an upset win over the Cowboys against his former team. So honorable mention, I would say, would be Deontay Sweat for the Bears, put up 175, and very crucial in the last 2 drives of Chicago in that Monday night game for those who stayed up to watch some of that against the Commanders. But yeah, that was my offensive player of the week.
Yeah, undrafted free agent for Carolina, just he earned reps when Chuba Hubbard ever comes back healthy.
Yeah.
But rolling into defensive player here is I have Nate Landman, 17 total tackles, 8 solo. Really pivotal point in that 17-3 win on defense. We talked about that young defense, but he's one of those studs on that young defense. Derrick Henry we say only, but Derrick Henry had 24 rushes for 122 yards, but every single one of those 24 rushes seemed like he had to get through 3 guys to get any positive yardage. And Landman at linebacker, out of South Africa, out of the International Player Program. had a really great game there. Was my defensive player of the week. A guy that I hadn't heard of until he pops out and has all those has 17 total tackles on a random Sunday. But defensive player of the week there.
Yeah, so with that being said, my defensive player of the week, I'm also sticking with my team. But I'm going to go out with the guy opposite of T.J. Watt, but in Nick Herbig. Getting a lot of playing time the last few years, carving out a package for him with Alex Highsmith being hurt. So Alex Highsmith did come back this week, but Herbig in his limited play on Sunday had 2 sacks, also had 5 QB hits, and he said he also had the aforementioned easy one. I think would most likely been a pick 6. I said if he caught that screen pass, I said, but he was just all over the field to where Pittsburgh, I said, had 6 sacks on the day, and I said every time you looked up, he's just making plays. So I have Nick Herbig as my defensive player of the week.
Yeah, I mean, great game there. We'll talk about Steelers game a little bit later, but really defensive it seems like after you called that defense out a couple weeks ago, they really started playing to that Pittsburgh Steelers level defense that we imagine every week.
Yeah.
But we have some injuries this week, some injury updates you could say. Puka Nacua with a high ankle sprain, questionable week to week. We'll see what happens there. Garrett Wilson out with a hyperextended knee, out for at least 2 to 3 weeks, if not longer. Emeka Egbuka, a stud rookie wide receiver with a hamstring. He's another week to week. And then Zadarius Smith retires from the NFL, playing for the Eagles playing for the Eagles currently, but retired today. Finished his career with 343 tackles and 70.5 sacks. So great game. He played for Baltimore, Green Bay, Minnesota for a year, Cleveland for 2 years, in Detroit, and then played in Philly this year. So great career for that guy. I mean, the Smith brothers there for a while in Green Bay were a problem. And then last year he came into that Detroit team that was absolutely riddled with injuries and played great, and then ends with Philadelphia. But he kind of leaving Philadelphia high and dry there with, Nolan Smith is already out on IR. Brandon Graham retires. They lose their other edge rusher from the Super Bowl last year. So kind of leaving him high and dry, kind of interested to see if anything comes out about why he chooses to retire in a random week 7 of this year, and didn't stick it all the way through. But those are our injuries from this week. You got any takes on those, Twitch? I mean, some big wide receiver names out or questionable to be out this week.
Well, I think, to me, the 2 biggest ones for me were Egbuka for Tampa Bay, so with Evans already being out, with Godwin still back and forth on and off the field. And then the other one being probably Fred Warner of the Niners, already missing Nick Bosa already for the year, and now losing their other defensive, the heart and soul of the defense. Yeah, even over Bosa is Fred Warner. So really unfortunate. His season's probably done. For a San Francisco team, for it seems like 2 years in a row, the injury bugs kind of bit them harder than most. So.
Yeah, I forgot to bring up Fred Warner, but Fred Warner went out with a broken foot. Terrible injury to see to a high-level caliber guy like that.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, the 49er defense, who was already kind of struggling, is now in a worse place somehow than they were before. But taking us into our first NFL head coach firing of the year, the Tennessee Titans fired Bryce Callahan after 1 year. He's only been there for a year.
Year and 6 games.
His 6 games.
Yeah.
Fire him. Mike McCoy stepping in as interim head coach there. But that leads me to our next question is, who do you think is going to be our next fired head coach in the NFL this year? There's plenty of candidates out there at this point in the season.
To me, I think that one of the most obvious right now is Josh McDaniel of the Dolphins. I think will be the next guy. I think even if Cleveland doesn't win, even if they don't win any more games in the month of October, I still think they keep Stefanski at least till the end of the year. And so those are the guys on the hot seat. I just can't see. I don't know if there'll be any leniency with the Bengals and keeping all of the AFC North. I said, but yeah, I think McDaniel's the next guy on the hot seat.
Yeah, I mean, if I was a betting man and I would have found the odds somewhere, I probably would have bet Mike McDaniels to be the first head coach fired this year. But it'll be interesting to see who they bring in to pair with the Cam Ward there. And, I mean, it's probably already hard enough to be a rookie quarterback in the NFL, but then having your head coach fired after 6 games probably just throws an absolute whirlwind on top of everything. But I think
Bring in Gruden.
Yeah, I saw a couple Gruden tweets, but coaches that get fired, I've seen, obviously, Zach Taylor's name's come up a little bit. I saw Pete Carroll, which I don't think Pete Carroll gets fired because he's an established guy in the league that they're going to give him some time to figure it out. Aaron Glenn might be on the hot seat if they don't figure out how to win a couple games here and there, the Jets coach there. But I think you're right with the Browns. I think the Browns hold on to their coach till the end of the year. I mean, he won Coach of the Year 3 years ago now. Yeah. So, I mean, he's a good coach. He's had Browns organization to deal with lack of a better way to put that. But rolling into another coach who's not going to get fired after a terrible year, at least I wouldn't think so, is the Ravens. And one thing I'd like to talk about here is, are the Ravens in serious trouble even if does Lamar come back after his hamstring injury that he's been out for a while here? But they're 1-5 now. Lost some big games. Lost again this week to a good Rams team. But Twitch, what do you have to?
Yeah, so like being a Steelers fan and like having a close take on the AFC North, and we'll talk about obviously Baltimore and Pittsburgh later. I said, but to me, I don't feel like Baltimore's done. Odds are like the margin for error is obviously a lot smaller or shorter with the Ravens now. They can probably realistically lose about 3 more games before they're really pushing to even be in the playoff hunt. But there is something to be said about Lamar Jackson coming back after the bye next week. If there's any team that's probably one of the biggest storylines so far this year is the Ravens being 1-5, but so they haven't had Jackson the last 2 weeks. And so with that, and then let me just go through the rest of I want to go through their schedule. But they have, after the bye, they have the Bears at home, Dolphins, Vikings, Browns, Jets, Bengals, Steelers at home, Bengals, Patriots, Packers, and then they finish off the year in Pittsburgh again. But to me, like I said, those are their back half of the schedule. I said we still have Pittsburgh's got 12 games, Baltimore's got 11 games left. I hate to be a pessimistic Steelers fan, I said, but like they're kind of known for the end of the year falling apart. And Pittsburgh's got, they've got obviously Baltimore twice, I said, but they've got Green Bay and they've got the Chargers and the Colts and the Bills and the Lions coming up the second half of the year. So I don't feel like it may look like people look at the 1-5 and see the 1 in front of it and think, oh well, Pittsburgh's only lost once, like they must be that much better, like it's like a for sure thing. But as much as I love my Steelers, they're not going to, I don't believe, go 13-4, 12-5. I think and not to go off subject, but if you're Pittsburgh, I think 11's the magic number. But I don't feel like, like I said, the margin for error is very small for Baltimore. But I don't see any reason if they come back that why they can't go 7-2 down the stretch and make a run. And you look at also the teams who they lost to even before he went out. You're talking about the Chiefs. You're talking about the Lions. You're talking about the Bills, who they were beating pretty handily by double digits in Buffalo. Yeah, so I know a lot of people are jumping off that Raven bandwagon, and I wouldn't mind if they just crash and burn. But I think Harbaugh is one of those guys that's still a top 10 coach, and after the bye week, I said they'll be desperate for some wins as much as anybody, and those are a couple of get-right games. Chicago's playing excellent right now. But another thing that, besides Lamar Jackson coming back, Hamilton and the secondary came back and also Kyle Van Noy. And the Rams have a pretty good offense, and the Ravens looked a lot better on defense. Doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to carry over week to week. It's a week-to-week league. But I think Baltimore, on both sides of the ball, is going to be a lot better, and with their strength of schedule, so the teams that make the playoffs, I said, I'm going to guess that at least one of them is going to be 10-7. So I said Baltimore, they could probably lose 2 more games and still make the playoffs. And so I'm not. Is it time to worry a little bit? Yeah, it's time to get serious. They need to start stacking wins at some point. I said, but as far as giving up on them, no, because at their best, you saw what they were in Buffalo. I mean, it's been a while since they played like that, but there does have to be something to be said about Lamar Jackson being out. So at their best, everyone besides just us had them as Super Bowl contenders. So.
Yeah, I mean,
I still think there's like it sounds crazy, and I hope that they don't come back on Pittsburgh. But even at 1-5, I don't think that even the division's out of the possibility for the Ravens.
Yeah, very much so. I have well, as of right now, I have them as like the Bengals from last year, is a team that gets hot late down the stretch and then pushes for a playoff spot in the end with a couple hard teams or a couple hard games.
Yeah.
I mean, playing the Packers at the end, who knows what the Packers are. I said this earlier, but the Packers are the worst team in the league right now. They're getting wins, but they're not pretty at all since the tie. And then, I mean, they play the Bears defense, who's greatly improved. But then, you play some shit teams in there, they get some easy wins. I feel like even if Lamar's still hurt, which Lamar's rumored to come back this week, but he was also rumored to come back last week, so who knows what that actual injury status is. But yeah, as a fan of an AFC team, I hope they crash and burn and don't have to worry about them, because they're a team I don't think you want to see in the playoffs. Because Baltimore's a hard place to play in general.
Yeah.
But then you got to think how good that team is, and you still have Derrick Henry, who didn't get a touchdown last week, but still went over 120 yards.
Well, and traditionally, this Baltimore is always good because they're very well balanced. They're like Pittsburgh, known for their defense.
Yeah.
But you also obviously have MVP candidate Lamar Jackson. You got a good tight end. You got a couple good wide receivers. You have Derrick Henry. They're balanced on both sides of the ball, like you said, and their physical nature that typically plays well in those December, January games. So, yeah.
That's going to lead us into our question of the week. Twitch and Box's question of the week this week is our top 3 trade candidates. So guys we could see move before that November trade deadline. So right now some teams are probably looking for some holes to fill, but also teams are looking to offload and get some draft picks, kind of waving the white flag on this year and saying, I think we're going to move on with whoever we have. But we'll just go back and forth here. I'll say one and then you can say who you think. But my first number one guy I could see being traded is Max Crosby, I almost said Oakland Raiders. Las Vegas Raiders. The Las Vegas Raiders. Great DN, had another 2 sacks this week against the Titans. But I could see a defense-needy team out there that needs that extra pass rush guy. Probably not the Packers because they have a couple young guys. But like a Detroit who kind of needs that other Hutchinson guy. Or, I don't think the Eagles do it because the Eagles have a bunch of studs already. But with Darius Smith retiring, bringing a guy like Max Crosby who you could absolutely demolish on the outside of that line with 2 great D tackles that they already have there. Yeah. So Max Crosby is probably I don't know if it happens because he's kind of a centerpiece there at the Raiders, but if Geno Smith keeps throwing interceptions the way he is, it might just be a time to wave the white flag on the season. But.
Yeah. I think for me, the first one that comes to my mind was somebody in the offseason that was a hot topic, and then he ended up playing. But if it gets much worse, but for the Bengals would be Trey Hendrickson. For that same reason, I saw early reports early in the season about him filling in that spot with Detroit to go opposite of Aiden Hutchinson. So that would be one to in my mind to keep an eye on, just because I don't feel like Cincinnati's going to be. I know they got Joe Flacco last week and they played better, but Trey Hendrickson was one. I know you'll have another one. So my other one that I'm looking at is I've heard a lot of speculation about Jalen Waddle of the Dolphins, a couple of spots, whether it be Pittsburgh, whether it be the Patriots. Teams looking for a number 2 wide receiver, somebody that's still a former Alabama standout, only in his 4th year.
A great speed guy.
Yeah, so that can and the teams I just mentioned that fits in what they like the end-around sweeps and jet sweeps and all that kind of stuff. He said because of his speed, he said even in his limited and lack of a better word, mediocre quarterback play. I think he's got over 400-some yards and about 30 catches this year. So in an underwhelming Dolphins offense, so he's one to keep an eye on. And then I'll kick it back to you. So I'm pretty sure I know where you're going with wide receiver.
But sticking on the wide receiver trend there is that I could see Chris Olave, Saints wide receiver, hurt last year, but this year has only 1 touchdown, 342 yards, 39 receptions. He's that wide receiver one down there in New Orleans who obviously is struggling this year. Obviously not great quarterback play.
Yeah.
Spencer Rattler's getting it done enough, but I could see him because you could recoup a 2nd-round pick for this guy and a team that's been in cap hell and kind of rebuilding right now. I could see them looking to offload a guy who's only 25, and probably his new contract's coming up here next year, I think, or the year after. So Chris Olave's on that trade block, and then another. Hate to stick to wide receivers here, but another receiver that I could see maybe being traded if stuff doesn't turn around is A.J. Brown getting traded off that Philadelphia Eagles team. Devontae Smith is a wide receiver one on a lot of other teams. So if the Eagles don't kind of turn it around and get some wins, stack some wins here, I could see them moving on from him and recouping another first-round pick for the guy. Because, he's still a stud receiver. They brought him in on a draft trade a couple years ago now from Tennessee, but I could see A.J. Brown going to like a New England or it's probably not going to happen, but like a Kansas City who needs – Rashee Rice comes back this week is huge, but add in another deep threat, big body receiver that Mahomes likes down there, especially with Kelsey getting older and not really – he's still a threat, but he doesn't have that X factor that Kelsey used to have that – you're inside the 10-yard line. We all know where the ball used to go. It's going right into Kelsey's hands wherever he's at.
Right.
But, yeah, I'd just be interested to look at some trades coming. Myles Garrett probably doesn't get traded after what he signed, but he would be on my list because the guy's still a stud. He's playing almost lights out every week.
Yeah.
Getting triple teamed and still puts up good stats.
I saw another one for Jacoby Myers of staying with the Raiders was if they don't turn it around.
Yeah.
Possible trade target for a lot of teams for another 2 receiver, another speedster, somebody else that's got over 300 yards this year. That's all I got for you.
Another one that I've seen that I don't think it would happen because he's basically a wide receiver one at tight end, but Trey McBride, Arizona Cardinals tight end, just a difference maker, runs great routes, blocks his ass off, but he's really their wide receiver one with the Marvin Harrison Jr. issues they've had recently. But I could see him being on the move. Arizona doesn't turn it up, I guess, for lack of a better term. They look really good sometimes, and then sometimes they look like what you expect the Arizona Cardinals to look into. But that's our questions of the week. Down in the comments, you could comment your top 3 trade candidates or somebody you would like your team to trade for if you think need some help in a certain position. But now roll into look at some recaps here. We're gonna look at the Giants-Eagles game, Seahawks-Jags game, the Panthers and Cowboys, and then the Bears and Commanders game. Start off with our last week's Thursday Night Football game. The Giants beating the Philadelphia Eagles 34-17. This game never really seemed close except for, when the first score, when the Eagles went up 3. But that Giants offense, Jackson Dart threw for 195 and a touchdown. We talked about Scabadoo, my offensive player of the week, having 3 touchdowns. Jackson Dart with another 58 and a touchdown. And Wan'Dale Robinson going 84 and a touchdown. So, absolutely domination across the board, I guess, for lack of a better term. Domination across the board by the Giants there. That game never really felt close. At any point, the Giants just came out and rolled. And, I don't know if the Eagles were still reeling from the Broncos loss or if they didn't think that the offense was going to be that good.
On a short week.
Yeah, on a short week coming on. You think you recover Monday, you watch film, you practice Tuesday, and then you're traveling Wednesday. So you're really not in your facility very much. You're rolling up to a team that's hot. They lost to the Saints the week before, so they might have been overlooking them a little bit, looking on to whoever was next. But it was a great game to watch. It seemed like the Giants just came out and just played their game, and the Eagles never really had any production. Saquon only had 58 rushing yards. Goddard led the team with 110 and a tutty. And then we can talk about it a little bit, but what was it, 4 straight tush pushes?
Yeah.
And I think made a lot of people change their mind on the tush push there. I'm still a tush push guy. Got to be able to stop it. So, maybe they need to tighten up definitely the reffing of it because there's definitely false starts and there's definitely false starts and guys offsides and all kinds of crazy stuff. Yeah. So I'm all for it. You got to be able to stop the play. It's not an illegal play, but when you do illegal stuff and they don't call it, then that gets a little annoying.
Right. No, I said my biggest thing was, New York has been competitive all year. We almost put that as our upset alert last week. On a short week, divisional game, I wouldn't have been surprised if the Giants squeaked out a win. But I think the biggest takeaway was how they won that game. So I don't know. I don't know if that was a hangover from the Denver loss, being a short week, or what. I said, but on the positive side for New York, definitely feels like they found their guy, and I feel like they found the two perfect teammates / energy, two perfect guys for New York. Just big market, a lot of media obviously in New York, and kind of what made, I feel, Eli successful. He was just kind of indifferent to all the outside noise, and just you could tell those guys like Scadaboo and Dart are out there having fun. You couldn't tell that they weren't sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, we're playing the Super Bowl winning, defending Super Bowl champs. I mean, so they were the ones that were more physical, the Giants in general. And like I said, every week if you look up, he said it's just one highlight after another, whether it's blocking, running, catching passes out of the backfield with Scadaboo. I said, but like the energy level and the chemistry that those two guys have, you can tell they're having fun on the field. We were talking about before the podcast about, this is completely random, but just about like, I just heard last week that upon Dart and Scadaboo both being drafted, first time they were flying back to New York, first time meeting each other, and Scadaboo was giving Dart a wet willy. So just two guys that are just having fun in the moment, like, and they embrace the pressure. I feel like, so that, two guys that are here to prove it, and like I said, that going forward I feel like it's going to make New York a legitimate team. And they showed us last week, you're going to have to show up and play, and you should in the NFL anyway. But it was like, it just a lot to be excited about if you're a Giants fan. Darts look pretty good. They're definitely commanding the huddle, the energy level the last 2 or 3 weeks, and then on the Eagles side, it's just like you said. It's just to me they came out and they looked flat. There was still some tension there. Not very creative on offense, giving up big chunk plays when New York would get the big plays, and then of course the pick six towards the end of the game. I said, but yeah, I mean, I think Philadelphia will be fine. I said, but yeah, I was shocked about that game. I said that was definitely my biggest shock of the week was how the Giants just thumped the Eagles.
I was trying to look up statistically what that percentage of wins are for the road team going out on that short week to a Thursday night game, and there's a lot of variables about time zones and stuff like that. Yeah. But I've got a couple people that lay down bets specifically every week on that, and so just something to look out for as the Steelers roll out to Cincy this week.
Yeah.
Probably still not taking the Bengals, but that's one thing to factor in.
Rolling into another NFC playoff team matchup here, or suspected playoff teams, you could say, is the Seahawks get a gritty win against the Jacksonville Jaguars, 20-12. Trevor Lawrence, not to be outdone, 258 yards, 2 touchdowns, only 59 rushing yards altogether, which neither of these teams really established the run game. This was definitely I'm going to let my quarterback sling the rock show. But Brian Thomas, 90 yards and a tutty. But, I mean, the Jaguars' offense, no run game, I think, really hurt them in this game with how explosive the Seahawks were, because Sam Darnold coming out and have another great week at 295 passing yards, another 2 touchdowns. Only takes 1 sack. Kenneth Walker in that rushing game only had 60 total yards. But Jackson Smith-Njigba has put himself in the Offensive Player of the Year category with another 162 yards in the tutty, with one 61-yard touchdown late in the second, just a huge play.
Yeah, that was a dime.
Yeah, Cooper Kupp gets in the end zone. But, I mean, that's just a gritty win for the Seahawks. They're sticking it out, playing in Jacksonville, so you're going coast to coast. But it was just an impressive win by the Seahawks. I think the Jags will be fine. I think the Jags bounce back fine. But Sam Darnold is looking like who he was taken to be with the Jets right now. And Jackson Smith-Njigba looks like wide receiver 1 right now.
Yeah. Good. That's a good take. As far as like with Jacksonville coming off the big win against Kansas City last week, they'll be fine. That's still a good football team. But I was more impressed with Seattle. I've been saying Seattle all year. And one of the big things was Jacksonville kind of made a run late. I said, but Seattle's defense continues to impress me, getting consistent pressure on whoever they play. And then the balance on offense, you mentioned it with Walker, may not have the huge rushing numbers. I said, but when you add in what he brings to the rushing and the receiving game, and then guys like I said, Cooper Kupp and Nelson Njigba, I mean, he's on the short list for Offensive Players of the Year. So and like you mentioned, you already touched on it too. I just wanted to say about Sam Darnold. I said Sam Darnold's, I think, in my eyes, one of those dark horse MVP candidates. I mean, we're talking about a bad fumble late against a tip pass against the Niners, and then an interception that was one of the few mistakes he's made this year against Tampa Bay, a good Tampa Bay team. But losing to two pretty good teams, but Sam Darnold's played pretty well every week so far this year, and like you said, kind of piggybacking off his season last year in Minnesota. Okay, was that just the system? Was that, was that just the system? Was that a one-year wonder? I said, but I've really been impressed with Sam Darnold and the Seahawks, and I said I did have the Seahawks winning that game. I said so, like two really good teams. That's a good win on the road, and I don't know how much it's making too much out of it, but anytime you have a West Coast team going to the East Coast team coast to coast, the record's usually atrocious for the West Coast team. So like going in there and getting a win with Jacksonville, coming off the high against Kansas City in Jacksonville, and again Seattle dominated that game for most of the game, and how they won it. Like I said, I was really impressed. I think Seattle, both of them, I think will be here towards the end of the year, make a push for the playoffs. Absolutely.
Rolling into a game that me and LSV watched this weekend is Carolina gets a last-second field goal dub over the Dallas Cowboys. Another Twitch's offensive player of the game here. Had a great week when undrafted rookie free agent Rico Dondal with 183 yards on 30 carries, and then leading their team in receiving as well with 56 and a touchdown. But the Panthers, Bryce Young throws 3 touchdowns, threw another pick, which it seems like every week, no matter how good he's playing, he always somehow throws a pick, which the pick wasn't his fault. It went off their rookie receiver, Terrell McMillan. I'm not even going to butcher his first name, but his interception definitely went right through his hands up in the air. It was definitely an announcer's jinx because Greg Olsen said, oh, well, he catches the ball every time it's in his vicinity, and then next play it went up. But the Carolina Panthers sitting at 3-3 get a nice gritty win against the Cowboys. Dak Prescott still had himself a good game with 261 yards, 3 tutties. Javonte Williams kind of gets stuffed, and only 31 rushing yards total as a team seems to be kind of a good way to lose. George Pickens, wide receiver 1, that was crazy that Pittsburgh traded to me still, but 168 yards, 1 touchdown. I mean, just an absolute dude. Is filling in great for CeeDee Lamb right now. We saw some George Pickens from last year with just some crazy athletic plays, jumping over guys for his touchdown and doing some weird extracurriculars that only George Pickens does, but he's still a guy. But it was a fun game to watch back and forth. I thought Dallas was going to pull it out, but I guess my prediction from 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago that he's got to bet on Carolina at home is the way to go, and they got another good win.
Yeah, well, I was going to give you props for that about a couple weeks ago. You said, I'm just going to pick Carolina at home anytime they play at home the rest of the year. So, good win for the Panthers. I don't think anybody in Carolina even had them sitting at 3-3. That's a good win for them. It's Bryce Young having the 3 touchdowns and quietly putting together a good year, second year. Some things to be excited about if they get some other offensive pieces. On the flip side of that for Dallas, Dallas sitting there with 2-3-1. At 2-3-1, and then have the Commanders come into Dallas this week. That'd be a good big game, interdivisional game. But this is, I believe, 5 out of the 6 weeks that the Cowboys have allowed over 30 points, and the other one being the Eagles to 24 points, whatever it was that week 1. I said, but the Dallas defense, it makes you scratch your head even more, getting rid of a guy like Micah Parsons, and then you're not getting any pressure.
Yeah,
you're not getting any pressures on the quarterback. Which is why I feel like it allowed Bryce Young to sit back there comfortably. And granted, he is mobile too. It's definitely some things, like you said, on the offensive side of the ball, take away that Chicago game. Like Dallas has moved the ball about every game. I said I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on the George Pickens thing. So I'm definitely a wide receiver 1, and like the 4th straight week he's had a touchdown. You give him opportunities, like he makes the plays, he makes the most out of it. So like I didn't have any fear of him dropping off, even with CD being hurt and guys focusing on him. So he's finally got a guy that can get him the ball. I hate to say that. But, for Dallas, if you're Dallas, be encouraged about some things on the offensive side of the ball, but on defense, they got to figure it out. I mean, it's just allowing 30-some points plus a game. that's why their record's sitting there at 2-3-1. So
Yeah, and I mean their schedule coming up is a little favorable. They have the Commanders obviously this week, but then they play at the Broncos. They have the Cardinals, the Raiders, the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Lions, the Vikings, the Chargers, the Commanders, and the Giants. So I mean, it's a little bit of a tough schedule. Got a couple good games there, and then a couple, don't want to say gimme games because there's no true gimme games in the NFL, but a couple hard to play games. But the Cowboys, I mean, said this preseason, but as long as Jerry Jones has his hands in the cookie jar, I don't think they're going anywhere special.
true.
I mean, Jerry Jones said, "I think we need to go out and trade for a defensive playmaker." Well, you traded away your best defensive playmaker that
Right.
you've had since I don't even know who, probably since DeMarcus Ware, and they traded him as well
Yeah.
towards the end of his career. But that takes us into our Monday Night Football game. Monday Night Football was a doubleheader, but this game was definitely at least more interesting to watch, in my opinion. The Bills I don't know if they were sleepwalking in Atlanta or what was happening, but the Bills lost that one. And I lost a lot of money, so I don't want to talk about it. So we're going to roll into the Bears and the Commanders getting that 25-24 win off of Jake Moody last-second field goal. A guy that got cut earlier this year by San Francisco. But Caleb Williams throwing for 252 and a touchdown. DeAndre Swift catching that touchdown for 2 for 67. Roman Dunze, 2 for 32. Just a guy we've been high on, kind of had a little bit of a lull there coming off the bye. But DeAndre Swift running for 108. And this was a really great, I guess you'd say, a definition of a back-and-forth game. These teams were back and forth the whole game. Jalen Daniels throws 3 touchdowns. Chris Moore, who I've never heard of before in my life, catches a touchdown. Zach Ertz gets a touchdown. And then Luke McCaffrey, Rice receiver,
Yeah.
Christian McCaffrey's brother, catches a touchdown. But, I mean, I don't know how the Commanders lost this one, to be honest. I mean, the Bears' defense played better. They held them when they got stops. But it seemed like Washington, even when they were down, I thought Washington was in control.
Mm-hmm.
But the Bears just came out and played a complete full game, and last-second field goal wasn't a double doink, so I think they're over the kicker curse that they used to have there for a while. And the Bears are a team to be on the lookout in the NFC because that defense is flying around making plays.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's a highly entertaining game for those who didn't watch it yesterday. I watched the second half. I got to watch the second half of that game yesterday. But it just seemed like a lot. I mean, it was just kind of sloppy in a lot of ways, and like a lot of good things from both Daniels coming back. You can tell that, the Washington offense a lot better. And then Caleb Williams still playing. And I said Campbell last week. Because he always reminds me of Jason Campbell, old Commanders quarterback, ironically. Anyway, but I thought he played pretty solid, made a couple of big-time throws. I said, but also the Bears with a couple of miscues and getting stopped on fourth down. It looked like some guys not lined up in the right spot, having a field goal blocked on that side, and then Washington throwing a red zone interception on top of that was another thing I was going to say almost made me twitch. You're up 24-22 with about 4 minutes to go on the Chicago 40-yard line, and rather than hand it off the option right into the stomach, he kind of tosses it when the running back's not watching, which set up the fumble, which allowed Chicago to basically milk the last 4 minutes of the clock. But on a 2nd and 7, like I said, Washington had numerous opportunities. They turned the ball over 3 times. Chicago didn't turn the ball over at all, and I felt that was obviously the difference in the game. I said they go from one drive and you mentioned the touchdown to McCaffrey. He said made a couple of nice plays to Deebo Samuel. Said get the touchdown to Zach Ertz. Like a lot of good things to be encouraged by out of Jaden Daniels being back now for the 2nd straight week. If you're Commanders fan, I said, but definitely if you're a Washington fan, I feel like you have to feel like you definitely let one slip away. But kudos to the Bears, who now, they said we kind of would joke about them, nothing personal. It's about how they started off the year and getting dumped by the Lions. They said now kind of settled into it. Now they've won 3 straight games, and they have some favorable games coming up. So kudos to the Bears. That was a good back and forth game. Like I said, and Swift, the final 2 drives, is taking over the 55-yard touchdown, and then milking the clock out for 3 or 4 first downs out of the backfield. 175 total yards. Good effort by the Bears. So, yeah, things to be encouraged for both. I said Washington let one get away. Chicago, I don't know if they would have had themselves with 3 wins already this year. I said, but Caleb Williams definitely looking the part, not turning the ball over again. So, we'll see.
Yeah. Quick side note here is our back-to-back upset alert of the weeks have hit. Hopefully it doesn't hit this week for our upset alert of the week, but just putting that out there. But we're going to take a quick break here, and then we're going to roll into our picks of Week 7. There you go.
Let's roll into our Week 7 picks. Kind of joked about this earlier, but a fun game. Hopefully for Thursday night, we have the Steelers rolling out to Cincy to play the Bengals. Might as well let Twitch pick this one first, see how this goes.
No surprises here. So I have the Steelers taking care of business. They said they need to stack up the wins while they can. And on a short week, it's a divisional game. Those games are usually a lot closer than what people think. But I feel like this is a game that we should win by 2 scores. Pittsburgh having, I don't know if it's 17, 18 sacks the last 3 weeks, like you said, kind of getting back to what they're always been known for. I like for them to get the pressure on them, and then having Joey Porter Jr. back definitely paid dividends, like having 2 number 1 corners and having some other guys back, having Alex Highsmith back to go along with Herbig. So I like for Pittsburgh to make enough plays and Aaron to keep the hand steady. And it may not be anything pretty like the last couple of wins, but just not turning the ball, knock on wood, not turning the ball over and getting the win in Cincinnati. They could go. I could see it go either way, only in the sense of like how Flacco plays, because Flacco is so experienced against us.
Yeah.
And to be honest, last year, for people that don't remember, Flacco played for the Colts last year, and the Colts we ended up losing by like a field goal, but they were beating us by like 3 touchdowns. Like Joe Flacco had like his best game of the year against us. So
It's got their number.
there's some cause for concern there. Plus that intense rivalry. Sorry, Finn. There's probably not a team I hate more in the NFL than the Bengals. But I like my Steelers taking care of business this week.
I like the Steelers getting it done as well. I think Joe Flacco comes out and shows us some old Joe Flacco that we've seen in the past years with the Browns, but I don't think this is the week. It's going to take a little bit to get that rhythm in with his receivers. So I think the Steelers get it done on Thursday Night Football.
All right, last game across the pond over in London, the MJD Bowl. We got the Rams versus the Jags.
This game, I feel like this is going to be a good game. Who knows? We don't know what Puka Nakua's injury status is as of right now. But in this game, I'm going to take the Jags to get it done purely because of past stats. I mean, the Rams have been a little bit of an international team, but the Jags went over and played. Seems like they play in London at least once every year, if not twice. It's kind of like their new home team. There was rumors when they were really bad if they were going to kick them out of the country and send them to London. So I have the Jags getting it done just because I don't know what Puka's injury status will be. And I think Devontae Adams and the Rams offense is still explosive, but I think the Jags, being familiar with this travel across the pond and all that stuff, I think the Jags get it done.
Yeah, this is one of those games I have as a toss-up game. I can see either team winning. The 2 teams that we both have probably making the playoffs. The Jags with a tough loss last week. I was tempted at first to pick the Jags, but I'm going to go with Matt Stafford, and they're having enough offensive pieces and their defense continuing to play really well. I think I said that I could see this game go either way. I just said just because the Jaguars have been really good this year, and they said they had their chances even in the last week when they didn't play well for 3 quarters. They had their chances against the Seahawks, so I expect it to be close. And I had for whatever reason, the Rams' offense has kind of struggled the last couple of weeks, letting Baltimore hang around last week. So I don't know how much to be concerned about that, but. I like Matthew Stafford and them to make enough plays and come out with a win.
All right, after a tough loss, we have the Eagles going to the Vikes for our first Sunday noon game.
Yeah, the Vikings coming off a bye. But I like the Eagles getting it done here. I think the Eagles bounce back against a good NFC team there. I don't really have much to say. I think losing Zadarius Smith might hurt him a little bit, but I think the Eagles click and get a NFC win here.
Yeah, I definitely have the Eagles coming back after 2 straight losses. I said I think for the first, even though they haven't played their best football, I still feel like they were a top 5 or 6 team up until the last 2 weeks, and part of that was the Giants being hot and playing on a short week and a divisional opponent, and the hangover loss, like letting Denver come back. So I think a lot, and I think there's obvious tension between people like AJ Brown and make sure he's getting his his targets and stuff. I said, but I feel like this is a week where I feel like Minnesota's been inconsistent on offense. I mean, they're coming off a bye, and Carson Wentz. I know it's several years removed, so I don't know how much to make of it, but like he's obviously familiar with Philadelphia. That being said, like and Minnesota's a tough place to play, but I just feel like this is a game for the Eagles getting that mini bye to show that okay, this is a get right game for the Eagles to me.
Very much so.
All right, next noon game, got an AFC West rivalry that goes back for forever. The Raiders are coming to Arrowhead and playing the Chiefs after a pretty significant win over the Lions.
Yeah, give me the Chiefs. Really, I mean, the Raiders. I don't like the Raiders. Hope the Raiders lose every week. So give me the Chiefs. Picking the better of two evils here.
Yeah. I mean, two teams going in opposite directions. As I know the Raiders got the win last week against the Titans, but I feel like the Chiefs just kind of sent everybody on notice because of the 2-3 start. I said, or the 1-2 start. I said, but the last two games at home against the Ravens and the Lions made a statement like we're still here. Like especially if you're in the AFC, I feel like the Chiefs sent a message that they had the tough loss in Jacksonville. I said, but I feel like the Chiefs have really opened things up on the offensive side of the ball, and people are kind of sleeping on their defense. I said, but even going back to the Philadelphia game, to allowing 6 points to the Giants, of course, the week before against Jacksonville, they had a pick, they had the picks. Patrick threw the pick six. I said, but they've been keeping teams under 20 points, and I don't even know why I'm still going on about this one.
Yeah.
I mean,
Rashee Rice is also coming back, so look out for that.
Right. So I feel like This is where Kansas City's going to start stacking wins. I feel like, and two teams going in the opposite directions, and
Very
I feel like,
so.
yeah.
Well, let's hope the Rice is an impact player this week. They got some other offensive weapons that we're seeing them being able to move the ball through the air and on the ground now. So, mentioning the Raiders just getting that win over the Titans, woohoo. We have the Patriots going out there to Nashville and playing the 1-5 Titans, and a pretty solid performance out of the Patriots last week. They got a lot of notoriety on social media.
Yeah, Drake May's looking great right now. I've seen a couple memes of like Drake May standing in the tunnel, and it's like a silhouette of Tom Brady standing behind him. So I mean, that's crazy comparison to throw out there. But New England fans, they're eager to have a good quarterback after winning for 2 decades.
Right.
And this game could be a little bit of a trap game, I guess you could say, for new head coach, interim head coach. I don't know exactly what the record is, but I remember last year when interim head coaches, the first person got fired, the record was 11-1 in the last, I think it was 3 years of interim head coach's first game coming back after getting the new head coach comes in, I guess you could say. With that being said, I'm still going to take the Patriots. I think the Patriots are hot right now. Drake May's playing lights out. Stephon Diggs is kind of having a resurgence in his career, being a great wide receiver one for their young quarterback. And Vrabel's got that defense playing what you expect Mike Vrabel defense to look like. I mean, they're playing lights out right now.
Yeah.
And, it's kind of a Vrabel get-back game saying, you just fired your coach, you replaced me with. Hold this. And then I could see him having a great game.
Right. I'm gonna go with the Patriots as well. I mean, 3 out of the last 4 games that they've won. I said in another one they were right there to the very end. On top of Vrabel going back to, again, I don't know if I'm making too much out of it. It's the players that decide the game, not always the coaches.
Yeah.
But again, the guy that 2 years ago had built what Tennessee had now. Tennessee's still trying to find their identity on both sides of the ball. And like I said, I do feel like New England's found their identity and are just really started to tap in now. Like I said, the last 2 weeks having Stephon Diggs. And like the Saints actually kept it pretty close for the second and the third quarter, but every time the Saints scored, the Patriots seemed to respond. So I like Vrabel to have him focused, and even if Tennessee sticks around for a little bit, like I said, I feel like New England is going to be battle ready, and they're just flat out they're the better team. Not that always, I mean, it's any given Sunday for a reason, but I just feel like there's too many offensive weapons. I feel like Drake May, like you said, is playing way too well. to where, like I said, I don't think they'll have any problem with that Tennessee defense putting up 20-some points, and I can't say the same thing about the Titans putting up that many. So Pats all the way. Gross.
Well, I don't know whether you put it on the coaches or the players like you mentioned, but the next one is the Panthers going out to New York and playing the 0-6 Jets.
Yeah, I feel like this is a very interesting game to see what the Panthers do against, lack of a better term, an inferior team, like a team that hasn't been performing as well. They're kind of, I mean, they're obviously in a lull. They're over. It's definitely has to be a lull. The Panthers coming off a good last-second win. I'm interested to see if the Panthers keep rolling the way they are. Since the Panthers brought their offensive coordinator down to the field instead of up in the box, they've won every game. So that was an interesting stat I saw today that, I mean, I don't know how much that means as a player, that if you can see your offensive coordinator on the sideline, but I guess it's easier to make adjustments, which it seemed like they did well. So I have the Panthers winning this one and the Jets. I think the Jets stay over this week. The Panthers look hot. Bryce Young's looking like the quarterback they drafted him to be.
Yeah. Nope, I have this same thing. I have the Panthers thanks to Bryce Young and his play. And New York's kind of struggled to stop the run so far this year. So I like Dowdle to have another big week. I don't know if I'd say 200 total yards again.
Yeah.
That's expecting a lot. But I like what I've seen out of Carolina. Obviously, I feel like, New York's going to get a win somewhere. But I just don't feel like it's going to be this week. Granted, Carolina's defense, no offense to them, isn't what Denver's defense is, but as terrible as the Jets have looked the last 2 or 3 weeks on offense, and then how I feel like Bryce Young's really having that offense play the last 2 or 3 weeks, I look forward to hopefully them take that next step and be able to beat these teams that you should win against. So, like I said, I don't think either one of us had the Panthers sitting here at 3-3 at the beginning of the year, and so ahead of schedule. And I said I'm not willing to say they're going to be this year's Commanders, but like you said, Bryce Young definitely playing some really good ball over the last month, and I like Carolina to take care of business against the Jets.
All right, well, the game that nobody watching, the AFC Toilet Bowl, the 1-5 Dolphins heading out to Cleveland to play the 1-5 Browns.
The Dog Pound. Yeah, this is another one of those games that people say should be flexed at 3 a.m. on the the Food Network. But I have the Browns getting this one done at home. I think this is the final straw for McDaniels, that if he doesn't come out and perform, could see him getting canned this early in the season. But I have the Browns getting it done. That Browns defense is real. Like, it's a good defense still at the end of the day. But Dolphins are the Dolphins. Dylan Gabriel can't see over his offensive lineman. I mean, there's so many things you could say, but I think the Browns get it done at home.
Yeah, I could see Cleveland pulling off the wins just because they're a lot better team at home, and they said that is probably a top 5 defense when their defense isn't on the field for 40 of the 60 minutes. But I'm actually going to go with the Dolphins. I know that they haven't really looked impressive, but they had their chance against the Bills. They had their chances against the Chargers. They're 1-5 for a reason, so I'm not trying to polish a turd. No offense to our Dolphins listeners. I do have a buddy that's a Dolphins fan.
I'm sorry.
Right. But I feel like there's enough on offense for the Dolphins. And like this is one of those games I feel like the yeah. I mean, Gabriel, here's the thing about Cleveland. I said they put up 57 pass attempts on a rookie quarterback last week, and there's nothing really to hang your hat on. And granted, he had a couple passes where against us where we weren't the only ones dropping the ball. It didn't rain. It was a sunny day. But they also had one. They had one literally in the red zone where it hit off the face mask. So, like, if you're a Browns wide receiver, you got to help your young quarterback out. I think that he provided something a little bit more than what Flacco did. Like I said, I think their defense will keep them in the game. Miami's obviously not that great of a team to where I think they're going to blow anybody out of the water. But playing a rookie quarterback, and Miami still scored over 20-some points, 3 of the last 4 weeks or whatever. And I like, because McDaniel also, he's not a stupid guy. He knows he's on the hot seat. You're looking at 2 1-5 teams. I said these are the games that make or break your. At least maybe kick the can down the road. But I like the Dolphins to take care of business in Cleveland.
All right, one last game there to wrap up the noon schedule. We have the New Orleans Saints rolling out to Chicago to play the 3-2 Bears that have been pretty hot.
I have the Bears winning this one. I think the Saints, like we talked about, they're an improving team, but the Bears are in a situation of win now, and the Saints are in a let's try to make it through the year without losing anybody. So I have the Bears getting this one done. That Bears defense has been hot.
Yeah. Yeah, I have Chicago in this one. He said you just mentioned, you touched on it. Like New Orleans is kind of a team. You're, like, see what they got with some of the young players, other guys on their last leg, and the Bears just being red hot. So this is one of those games where Chicago traditionally plays better at home, and these games, they've had some solid, I consider solid wins for Chicago. These are the games you should win, and I look for Caleb Williams to take that next step, and I feel like they found a formula. So they've got some good playmakers on both sides of the ball, I said, but just off of Adunze, and don't forget they still have DJ Moore, who has kind of underperformed this year because a lot of those targets have gone to him, to Adunze, whatever you want to say. But I said the two wide receivers that they have and what they have in Swift, I think they'll generate enough offense. And yeah, New Orleans just, that's what I keep coming back to. It's like, it seems like this week so far is just like teams that have been playing really well offensively and teams that are really, really struggling. So I don't feel like at the end of the day, it's who has more points than the other. And Chicago's been playing really, really well. So I think Chicago will be here for a minute, and I'm pleasantly surprised to say that. But
Yeah.
in Chicago, the Bears.
All right. Well, first 3:05 game, we talked about maybe this could be the game of the week. We have the Colts going out and playing the Chargers.
Yeah, I mean, Chargers have been reeling recently. I mean, they haven't looked good back-to-back losses. But then the Colts have looked hot since their loss to the Rams and the way they did. So I like this game. With that being said, I think Harbaugh, after a little bit of a losing streak, I think Harbaugh rights the ship against a good Colts team. I believe in the Chargers team to be good, so I have the Chargers winning this game. I mean, last-second field goal against the Dolphins, Dolphins are not anything special at all we've talked about, but I like the Chargers getting it done in this one. I could see, but for sure, our game of the week this week just it could be a shootout.
Yeah.
It could also be a defensive game.
Yeah.
We don't know what it's going to look like, but I think the Chargers get it done.
Yeah. Well, like we've kind of talked about before, but these are two teams we expect to be in the playoff.
The Colts are the 1 seed right now if the playoffs started today.
Yeah.
So.
And for that reason, I have the Colts winning. I said definitely here with the Chargers. I said it's going to be a close game. To me, this is another one of those toss-up games. Herbert got the game-winning drive last week. I said it was kind of ugly against the Dolphins, against the bad Dolphins team. Chargers I thought they looked really good the first 3 weeks, and then had a couple games where they just stunk it up, especially the game 2 weeks ago against the Commanders. That being said, I do expect them to play a lot better. But I like everything about this Indianapolis team right now, and the balance that they have. And Greg, I know you'll attest this for him being on your fantasy team. But Jonathan Taylor's good for $150 every week and usually a touchdown. Yeah. So for the Chargers, who seem to be, they have some injuries on the defensive side of the ball, and they've had a hard time lately stopping the run. And that's not a good time when you're playing Jonathan Taylor. And I also believe that you talk about 4 or 5 MVP candidates we've talked about before, and Daniel Jones, and I like that offense to be able to travel on the road. Where, again, no offense to Chargers fans, but there's too much else going on. They're notorious for half the stands being the other team, so I don't feel like it's really a home field advantage. And I think it's going to be a great game. Like you said, you and I agree that this is one of two to choose from. But as far as the game of the week on Sunday, but I like the Colts at 5-1. This will be a great game. I do believe the Chargers are good. They'll play better, but I like Daniel Jones in that offense to keep humming.
All right, the next 3:05 game, we got the Giants probably still on that 34-17 high over the Eagles, traveling to welcome home Denver Broncos, who spent a week out in Philly getting that win, traveling all the way out to London. Our kid got to go out there for that game and said it was just a phenomenal experience, but back at home. And so I'm excited to not have to get up at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning to watch them. What's you guys' thoughts?
This is a game that if you would have said this is a game that we put on upset alert, 4 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I'd have been like, okay, whatever, man, shut up. But now this week, I mean, as a Broncos fan, with the performance they had last week, I mean, they're a hot team. They beat a team that we beat the week before. But, I mean, I have the Broncos winning this one, obviously. I'm a Broncos fan. I believe that we're going to get the win. But this Giants team scares me on offense. Looked really good. I mean, just have a dog at quarterback and a dog at running back. But I think the Broncos defense as well they played. I mean, had 9 sacks last week. Absolutely caused Justin Field absolute mayhem. We still have Patrick Surtain, reigning defensive player of the year, locking guys down. And, I mean, that doesn't mean much when your pass game isn't the best in the world. But I think the Broncos defense can get this one done, and Broncos win us the game again. Dre Greenlaw is supposed to be coming off of IR this week, which will be a huge inside linebacker addition. So I think the Broncos roll and get the Giants a little bit of a hot streak they've had here.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is going to be one of the more interesting games, too, I feel. It's because who knows? I mean, it's New York's been close in every game they've been in, other than them stomping on the Eagles, ironically.
Yeah.
So that's another one where my first instinct is to want to go with Giants and ride the wave and what they're bringing us. But I'm actually going to go with Denver as well, just because Bo Nix has played pretty well. So he's only had about probably a couple of weeks, those 2 weeks prior to this one, where he's played a full good game. Usually it's been a half. I said, but I feel like Denver, going against a rookie quarterback and Sean Payton, I just feel like the Broncos will find a way to win. And like I said, the Giants 2 weeks ago losing to the Saints. And so It's like they beat a pretty good Chargers team that was undefeated right before that. So it's like a lot we talked about. There's a lot to be encouraged there. A lot of fun to watch with Scatterboo and Dart. I said, but like I do believe Denver, AFC West, well, I guess they're tied. They're tied with the Chargers. With the Chargers right now having the tiebreaker. But I like Denver in this home stretch to take care of business and like that defense to really limit a rookie quarterback. At the end of the day, I feel like they make enough plays. Like New York's a lot of fun to watch, but I feel like Denver gets it done this week.
Well, I hope the Colts and the Giants both get it done this week, and the Chargers and the Broncos sit back another game. Give us a chance to catch up as a Chiefs fan. A couple more games out here at 3:05. Not sure which ones we'll get out here. I know which one I want to watch. But this next one, we got the Packers at Arizona playing the Cards.
I think the Packers get this one done. I said it earlier. I'll say it again right now. The Packers are the worst team in the league right now. They figure out a way to win, but watching them play their game of football is like, holy shit, what is happening?
Right.
Josh Jacobs still a stud receiver or stud running back, but I mean the Packers obviously last week. They beat a not good team, you could say, but I mean it was closer than a lot of people thought it was going to be or needed to be. But I think the Packers get it done against the Cardinals this week, just because the Cardinals are the Cardinals.
Yeah.
That's it's purely. Cardinals' offense is nothing special, and their defense is nothing special.
Yeah.
And I think that Packers' offense is special enough to get it done.
Right. Well, the Packers are one of those teams like where 1 week the defense plays really well and the offense doesn't, or vice versa. I like Green Bay to take care of business. I think for flat out, they're just the better team, a better quarterback. So far, I think I saw that it's Kyler Murray questionable.
Yeah, we don't.
Which Jacoby Brissett played a hell of a game against a really good Colts team.
He really did. I mean,
but Jonathan Taylor also had a really good running, which obviously he's been doing that to everybody. But like you said, you're talking about probably a top 6 running back the last several years. Going back to his time with the Raiders, but Josh Jacobs, I like that running game to get going a little bit more with Green Bay. Especially with some of the opponents that Green Bay has coming up, such as us, with other teams that struggle to stop the run. So I feel like they're going to – and another thing, I mean, balance, that's what you go for no matter – like season to season, doesn't matter what your schedule is. I mean, that's just you going for balance anyway. But especially when in the division they're in, and like when you play a team like the Lions, which, they've already beat them once. But like I feel like Green Bay is going to be really focused on the running game and I feel like Josh Jacobs has a big day, and I feel that the Packers just, like you said, it may not be pretty. I said, but I'm not a believer in the Cardinals, even if Kyler Murray does play.
I mean, Jacoby Brissett, hats off to him. I mean, played great at coming in on backup quarterback. made that game very interesting. Still lost, but
Yeah.
I mean, he played lights out, or best as you can think a backup quarterback can play. So, shout out Jacoby Brissett, career backup guy.
Yeah.
Well, last afternoon game, NFC East rival between the 3-3 Commanders, and what is always interesting to me when you split a tie game, they're playing in Dallas against a 2-3-1 Cowboys. So I think this has some potential moving forward to be a game that both teams really want to win that game.
Yeah.
Obviously, but
Especially in division, Cowboys coming off a loss to a team that everybody was like, "There's no way we lose to this team," and the Commanders also coming off a last-second loss to a team they beat last year off a last-second Hail Mary. So I mean, both teams coming off losses. I think both teams come into this game hungry, or as hungry as they can be. But I'm gonna take the Commanders in this one because of what Twitch said earlier, or mainly because of what Twitch said earlier of the Cowboys have no defense, and the Commanders have enough of a run game to open up the pass game. Scary Terry is likely to be back this week. I'm guessing that if he's close to 100%, he's going to play because it's a division game. It's hey, this game needs to be on our resume for later in the season when we run into tiebreakers and all that crap.
Right.
So I have the Commanders getting this one done in Dallas.
Yeah. I have Washington as well. I think this will be one of the more entertaining games of the week. A divisional, old school rivalry game. Like I said, every single one of Dallas's games has been, other than the Chicago games, pretty much been down to the wire. So I think it'll be close, but like what I've seen the 2 weeks, even in the loss last week or last night with the Commanders, definitely had their opportunities. Should have probably won that game still, and like I am a believer in Washington, and the more that Daniels is back and gets into a rhythm, and they said having Scary Terry back. I think Washington's defense is obviously better than what Dallas's defense is, and then Washington. Jaden Daniels showed me last year that he's not afraid to play. Not this is a huge game, but I mean, like in a divisional game, like the moment the stage doesn't look too big for him, like even in the playoff game. So I think I like his demeanor, and I like for him to get it done. It's an old school rivalry game, and so Dallas just has no defense. So,
well, I don't care if you call them the Commanders. They did miss out on Indigenous People Day on Monday. But I played a lot of Cowboys and Indians as a kid, and the Cowboys always won. So if I was going to put one out there, I'm going with the Cowboys. Old school pick. So
Throwback.
All right. Well, that does take us to our Sunday night game, 7:20. We got the Falcons rolling out to play San Francisco, playing the Niners.
Yeah, I mean, this game, after the 49ers lost to Fred Warner, definitely makes this game a lot more interesting, especially with the win that the Falcons got. Also, getting that 2-score win over the Bills. I mean, this Sunday Night Football game is intriguing because offensively, who knows what we're going to get. We don't know if we're going to get the explosive 49ers or the dead 49ers. And the same thing with the Falcons. The Falcons have been so hot or cold that we don't know if we're going to get the Falcons that got 30-0'd or if we're going to get the Falcons that beat the Bills.
yeah.
So I feel like this game could go either way. I'm glad. If you would have asked me last week if I thought this was going to be a good Sunday Night Football game, I was going to say probably not. Probably going to be doing something else. But I'll definitely be tuning in for this one. And I had the 49ers picked as my pick, but after the Falcons handled the Bills the way they did and that 49ers loss of Fred Warner on defense, I think the Falcons roll into Levi Stadium, which is going to be a tough place to play. Shanahan's always seems like he has his team up for big moments, obviously, Super Bowl appearances and NFC Championship games. I think the Falcons come in and get that done. I think Bijan Robinson's kind of hitting his stride, and Penix is doing enough to get that job done.
Yeah. So I definitely I could see a scenario where like for what you just said, Atlanta walking away with the win after beating the Commanders, and then that good win against the Bills. And like I said, it seems like they have a good balance. Like Penix hasn't been turning the ball over like he was early in the year. It just like you said, it depends what Falcons team you get. Or you're getting the one that beat the Commanders and Bills, or you're getting the one that got 30 to the Panthers. I do think obviously the loss of Fred Warner is going to hurt tremendously for the Niners after I said already losing Bosa. But I still feel like there's enough pieces for the Niners, and I have, even with the injuries last week, I said they had their chances against the Bucs, against a good Bucs team. man, like it's really surprised me a couple weeks ago with the win against the Rams, and so like Matt Jones has played really well, and I like San Francisco for again the same reason you mentioned, that typically the Niners and Kyle Shanahan are usually money at home, especially on prime time. So I like even with their two best players on defense being out, I like for their defense to be able to limit. I mean, I said that's what's scary, is because Robinson's one of those generational talents. So I mean, like he did the other night, kind of broke the game open, whereas then Buffalo was chasing the rest of the game, chasing the Falcons. So it's like, it's not going to be surprising if he breaks a long one. But I like the Niners to be able to keep him in check, and for Matt Jones to make enough plays in a close game. And I actually like the Niners here.
I've got some different picks between you guys this week.
I know,
I'm just excited to see what we tally that up to look like. I've had a lot of busy days at work on Tuesdays, so those Monday night double headers can be a little crazy going into work Tuesday morning. But I got to tell you, one of the games this week that I'm definitely excited about is one of the Monday night games. You got the 5-1 Bucks playing at Detroit. It's sitting at 4-2, and I feel like Detroit's going to be hungry, but Baker's been just a beast. I mean, there's a lot to be said about this one. So I'm curious to see where you guys' picks are.
I got it right here.
Very much so. With that being said, I mean, last week was the first time Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers got in the victory formation, actually handled the game, and actually won it without having to hit a last-second field goal. The amount of injuries that the Buccaneers are dealing with kind of makes me worried about this game, with Mbuka with his hamstring, Mike Evans still out, Godwin's questionable. Offensive line, their starting left guard is hurt. Tristan Wirfs kind of got rolled up on in that game, so he's probably going to play just because he's a dog and wants to play. But, I mean, and the Lions obviously losing in prime time, I think Dan Campbell's probably obviously pissed off about it. I think that team has the edginess, so they're probably pissed off about it as well. But I have the Bucks. I think Baker still cooks. I mean, even with Ibuka coming down like that, I think Tez Johnson really stepped up. Theo Johnson, who I've never heard of before, but Theo Johnson comes out and catches a touchdown. I mean, the Buccaneers played. I mean, I think Baker just finds a way to get it done. I think Baker finds a way to get it done against a top NFC team.
Yeah. Well, you and I both have been on the Baker bandwagon all year, and I think he's honestly right now probably the front runner.
Yeah, he's my MVP candidate.
Right. So, I mean, Tampa Bay has been as consistent and as good as anybody in the league so far this year. But so the Lions kind of hit a wall with the Chiefs defense the second half last week. But to me, that up until that point, for the last 4.5 weeks, I feel like the most consistent team is Detroit. So if the Bucks had all their wide receivers healthy, then I'd probably call it a toss-up. Or I might go Bucks. I go back and forth because of that offense with Detroit and being at home on prime time may not used to mean very much back in the day. But like I said, these fans are hungry for something to celebrate Detroit, and so. First of all, let me back up. It's just like, if you don't watch this game Monday, it's like, how can you call yourself a football fan? These are two of the most fun teams to watch, with Baker Mayfield and the Bucks, and then the Lions over the last couple of years. But because of the Lions' loss to the Chiefs, and because of the injuries to the Bucks wide receiver course, I think Baker will play really well. He'll keep it close. But like I said, Detroit's been on fire up until, I know they lost last week. But up until that point, averaging over 35 points a game. And like I said, Tampa's got a great defense. They have a good defense. But I like, since it's in Detroit and with the injuries of Tampa Bay, I actually like the Lions to walk away with the win here.
There you go. Save your sick leave, kids. Call in on Tuesday. We got one more Monday night game. 2-3 Texans, 4-2 Seahawks in Seattle.
Texans, a team that's kind of been underperforming this last year. I mean, I had them walking away with the South. Obviously didn't know that the Colts were going to come out and do what the Colts have done so far and turn themselves into a playoff team. But Houston coming off the bye here, having to go to Seattle. Seattle coming off a gritty win against the Jags, and I think the Seahawks roll into another gritty win. I think the Texans will be prepared with getting that bye week and coming back ready to play. But I have the Seahawks getting the win here up there in the 12th man stadium.
Is it in Seattle?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because
Okay.
you got Sam Darnold's been playing like an MVP candidate. He's been playing lights out. Smith and Najigba has been playing lights out, and that Texans secondary has been kind of struggling this year. So I don't see any reason for them to slow down. And I think the Seahawks win this one.
Well, there's another one we at least have the same. I said I have the Seahawks at home. Seahawks have been consistent all year. 4-2, very easily could be 6-0. It happens in the NFL. They could be 2-4 too. But
Yeah.
but I think that the balance that they bring, Houston, one of the bright spots is that after winning 2 straight, getting back on track after losing a couple of heartbreakers, their defense has played really well. They're coming off. They're coming off their bye.
Yeah.
The Texans are coming off their bye, so they had 2 weeks to prepare. Played a lot better. I said I do like C.J. Stroud, but I said Seattle, Seattle at home, prime time. The way Sam Darnold's playing, the way they can run that football, I like Seattle to take care of business at home. So
Yeah. We got the Bills and the Ravens on bye this week as well. So two teams that lost last week that kind of need to do some.
I'm going with the bye week against the Ravens this week. No, I'm just
I
kidding.
think both teams really need to do some soul searching and maybe establish an identity there with those two teams.
Yeah.
But quick little thing here is I'm kind of thinking something that makes me twitch is Monday Night Football doubleheaders. Let's play this one game, man. I mean, it's fine with 2 games, it's whatever, but I feel like it just takes away the allure, the specialness of one Monday Night Football game. Just because there's 2 games going on, you're kind of interested in the other one. Now, obviously, this week there's one good game and one game.
Yeah.
But I feel like if Bucks Lions would be a way bigger game if it was the only game on. So
True.
Roger Goodell has stopped doing doubleheaders. I'd rather
Yeah.
doubleheader Thursday night to start my week off better or something. But
Yeah.
Save your sick leave for Friday.
yeah, I'd rather take off a Friday than I'd take off a Tuesday, man.
Right.
Just kidding. Don't take off work.
Be responsible.
Be responsible.
Quick side note here. Last week, our pick records is Twitch himself. Twitch himself had another great week at 11-4.
A lot better than that 5-9 the week before that.
I went 9-6. Whatever. I wanted 10 wins, but I didn't get it. The Bills screwed me again. The Bills really screwed me in a lot of ways, more than just financially. But that takes our overall records to Twitch leading it here with 61-31-1, and I am 55-37-1. So keep those stats going throughout the year. But hopefully I get Twitch this week. We have a lot of good games that we are changed up on, so there's some good opportunity for me to make up some games that I'm back right now.
There's definitely a lot of games that I'm excited to watch. I don't know what we'll get. I don't have anything crazy as far as the NFL ticket to watch them, but I try to pop through and watch a bunch of them. But, as the box mentioned earlier, we'd love to be able to get a couple other people that wanted to come in here and talk about their teams that are hot. I do need to reconnect with a friend of mine that would like to come out here and weigh in on the Colts, but if there's any other takes that you want us to talk about, or if you want to call in and do a little segment,
Radio segment.
yeah,
Phone call
we're
segment.
okay with that. Our goal is just to do something entertaining. I love getting together with these guys, and I think they bring a lot of fun to my footballs on Sundays, and I hope that they're doing the same thing. And we're adding some new additions into the Backstage Pass. We're not only Jefferson County's finest nightclub and griddle, but soon to be spa, as a hot tub is going to be dropped off here next Wednesday.
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll wrap this up, and we'll see you guys all next week.
See ya.